On September 5, 1975, U.S. President Gerald Ford survives an assassination attempt in Sacramento, California. Ford ascended to the presidency just over a year earlier when Richard Nixon became the first and only U.S. president to resign from office. Ford had only been vice president for 8 months at the time of Nixon's resignation, taking over for Spiro Agnew, who had himself resigned as vice president. Before becoming vice president, Ford was serving in his 13th term as a member of the U.S. House of Representatives. He was appointed as vice president by Nixon and approved by the U.S. Senate, under a provision in the 25th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution. Before this amendment, there was no mechanism to fill a vacancy in the vice presidency between elections, which meant that for several stretches in U.S. history, the country was without a vice president. The 25th Amendment was approved in the wake of the Kennedy assassination, which created an urgency for clarifying the mechanisms of presidential succession. To this day, Ford remains the only vice president appointed via the 25th Amendment. He is therefore the only U.S. president to serve without having been elected to the executive branch. On September 5, 1975, President Ford was in Sacramento, walking to the state capitol building to give a speech. 26-year-old Lynette Fromme approached Ford and raised a .45 caliber handgun. Before she was able to fire, Secret Service agents tackled her and wrestled away the firearm. Fromme was a follower of infamous cult leader Charles Manson, who had been in prison in California since 1969 for his role in the murder of actress Sharon Tate. After Manson's conviction, Fromme and other members of his cult formed a group called the International People's Court of Retribution. Their goal was to terrorize executives from businesses they saw as destructive to the environment. Fromme's nickname in the group was Squeaky. She devised the plot to assassinate President Ford to try to impress the imprisoned Manson. After the attempt, Ford continued walking to the Capitol building and still gave his speech. Ironically, the main topic of his speech was crime. 17 days after that first assassination attempt, another woman, Sara Jane Moore, who had no connection to Fromme or the Manson cult, tried to assassinate Ford in San Francisco as he was exiting a hotel. She got off one shot but narrowly missed her target. This time, it's a bystander who grabbed the attacker's arm when she raised to fire again. The bystander, Oliver Sipple, was a former Marine and Vietnam veteran. He was publicly thanked by Ford 3 days later. Fromme and Moore were each convicted and sentenced to life in prison. Both were incarcerated at the same federal prison in West Virginia. Incidentally, it's the same federal facility where Martha Stewart was imprisoned years later. Oddly, each briefly escaped but was recaptured, Fromme in 1979 and Moore in 1989. Both were subsequently moved to higher security facilities. Each has since been released on parole, Moore in 2007 and Fromme in 2009. Here are other events that happened today in history. In 1774, responding to Britain's intolerable acts, the First Continental Congress holds its first meeting. In 1836, General and statesman Sam Houston is elected as the first president of the Republic of Texas. In 1877, Oglala Lakota war leader Crazy Horse is killed in a scuffle with a U.S. soldier. In 1905, the Russo-Japanese War ends with the signing of the Treaty of Portsmouth. In 1914, early in World War I, the First Battle of the Marne begins outside of Paris. In 1972, Palestinian terrorists take Israeli athletes and coaches hostage at the Munich Olympics. In 2006, Katie Couric becomes the first female solo anchor of a U.S. weekday network evening news show. And now it's time for our Today in History quiz. What was the first ever self-serve grocery store? Publix, Safeway, Piggly Wiggly, or Kroger? Think you know the answer? Drop your guesses in the comments below. Find out if you're right next time on Today in History. You made it through Today in History. Nice work. Now treat yourself. Click the video on the right for what happened yesterday in history. Still can't get enough? The link on the left's got the whole playlist buffet. Want to make history a daily habit? Click my face in the middle to subscribe.